9.
Right,
Don't
okay.
go too far, folks.
Right, so
This
I'm going to go
conference
through.
will now be recorded.
I'm going to go through sort of the various things I've done over the years, and that sort of enable me to have fun and learn along the way. And hopefully will be some things that you've seen before, but there will be some new things depending on how long you've been at the club. So I've divided it in a couple of sections. The first section won't require really any use of Photoshop, so it can be used on your camera, the camera settings, and perhaps some odd other pieces of equipment. And feel free to ask questions along the way. It may get a bit tricky if everybody tries to talk, so if you use the chat box and sort of just write a cue in there, I can ask you sort of when I'm ready, if you like. So first thing I start with is quite a straightforward one, which most people, or quite a few people, have had a go at, as the intentional camera movement. This is quite a straightforward one that I've done of a birch tree and just moving the camera in a vertical up and down position. The camera is just set at 0.4 of a second shutter speed, so that gave enough time to show some of the movement as I moved the camera up or down, whichever way I wanted to do it. Effects can vary quite a lot, and it's a lot of trial and error in this. Similar, if you want to do a horizontal movement, this is the beach at Wells, and I panned the camera along the beach with a reasonably slow shutter speed there of 1/50th of a second, and it really simplified the detail. But because there's lots of lines, it looks quite effective, I think, as there's lots of lines and different colours, shades of brown. And I think that's probably one of my best ICM pictures. A slightly different one here. This one's a field of poppies that came out, and I moved the camera up or down to give that little bit of a different effect. And there's lots of, there's a lot of trial and error in this, and getting the shutter speed just long enough for you to get that bit of movement is perhaps the tricky bit. And it doesn't need to be as long as a second, but it's slower than you would normally use to get a still picture. So you certainly want it slower than 1/100th of a second to do this. If it's a really bright day, you might want to put a filter on to give you a longer shutter speed. So something you can do in camera, there's a double exposure. I think most cameras have that as an option now. Something I haven't done a great deal of, but this is a double exposure. Joe was sitting on a seat for one picture, then I took a picture of, looks like some clematis leaves. Gives some interesting effects, and there's certainly some excellent versions of this you can see online if you want to look into how to do it and sort of give your ideas. And lens zoom, that's another in-camera effect you can do. Line your camera up on the subjects, and as you press the shutters, zoom the lens in and out. There's a bit of trial and error again on how long a shutter speed you need for this. So you need it long enough to enable you to sort of turn the lens in or out. This one was, say, 0.6 of a second. So it's not a massively long time. This one's a slightly longer time. The stained glass window. It's quite a colourful effect. Certainly one to experiment with the next time you're in a church. So they were all things that you can do sort of fairly easily when you're out and about. Now, when you've got a rainy day, you can experiment in the kitchen sink. I mean, so I've got no specialist electronic equipment for doing this. I just set the sink tap a dripping, set my camera up on a tripod near the sink. There was a lot of trial and error. I think I took a few hundred shots to try and get a few which were in focus and showed a few drops. And I used a macro lens for this, f/29, so I had as good a depth of field as I could get. And 1/60th per second. So I'm not. So some of you may be thinking you need a fast shutter speed to catch the water. But say a 60th of a second is not very fast, but I used a flash to freeze the movement. So, got a question there?
Yeah, got a couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one comment.
Yeah. So Ian, does that always have to be set on a tripod for these sets? So the in-camera movement, talking about that, I saw handheld. So I've never used a tripod when I'm doing that. But I mean, if you want, depends how good your panning is, you could say. If you want to pan from left to right or up and down, and you don't want it to be a bit wobbly, then you'll get a straighter effect if you use a tripod. The then zoom, again, that's handheld. And I think that's a similar case there. If you want straight zoom lines, perfectly straight zoom lines, then on a tripod could give you that effect. If you want ziggly zaggly lines, wibbly wobbly lines, then hand hold it and use a longer shutter speed. The water droplets were on a tripod. And so I took a lot of pictures to do that just over the kitchen sink. It always interests me just how the flash freezes motion. It's not something that you automatically think about. And this is what the next picture is. I was playing around in the back garden. There's quite a number of blue tits at nesting time in my back garden using the nest box. Went out there with me camera and a flash gun. Not the sharpest of pictures, but I was quite amazed at how that froze the wings on the blue tit. 1/125th of a second, which, you know, if you're doing birds in flight, you're gonna, I don't know, have a 500th of a second perhaps. So again, the flash has frozen the wings when it's gone off. And this is a mistake, a bit of an odd one here. It's say one Christmas, had the girls round and we were trying to do some pictures in front of the Christmas tree with the party poppers going off. And Jess moved the head just at the wrong time or the right time. So it's not quite sure which is, I suppose it's frozen the head movement as the head has turned, so you've got the hair, and then it's carried on and taken the picture of her when she's been looking at the camera. It's most peculiar. It's the only one that came out like that. So just happened to move at the right time. But it shows you what odd effects you can get when you don't expect them. Again, that's all stuff you don't need lots of Photoshop to do. A little bit of light paint, and I don't know whether you've heard of spiro light paint. And if any of you had a spirograph where you can draw sort of patterns by going around in circles with a pen and some plastic discs, it's sort of similar effects to this. So to do this, I hung a little LED light up from a light in the bedroom and had the camera underneath pointing up, and then to set the LED moving on the string, had a long exposure, 25-30 seconds. It was difficult to get the focus in, so I used an f/16, a smaller aperture. See the one on the right hand side I've set up, I think there's 2 lights there next to each other, and set them swirling around. But this is quite fun and quite a simple thing to do without any high-tech equipment. I think the little LED lights I used are off eBay for a £5, and they're actually ones that you clip on your fingers. Very cheap. Fireworks, something else you can have a go at without any high-tech equipment. So this one, it's a windy night, so I sort of added to the fireworks being blown across the screen, and I think I used a bulb exposure for this one. So I had the camera open, waited for the fireworks to go off. I timed it, I can't remember how long it was. It may have even been for while the fireworks were flying about in the air, and then closed the exposure once they finished. So I got the whole display of the firework going up in the air and banging. The next one is a slightly different version of fireworks. So I've gone from a long exposure to a 5-second exposure. And this is because I wanted to get some movement in the merry-go-round that was in the foreground. So with the fireworks, there's obviously a lot less movement. And this was really a bit of pot luck, because I'm on Angel Hill when the fair was on. I think David Richardson was there with us as well, trying a similar sort of thing. And you didn't know when the fireworks were going to go off. So I was sort of just pressing my shutter and hoping a firework would go off, and did that quite a few times and managed to catch 1 or 2. Again, now, and something I've come across in sort of the website, cross polarization or photoelasticity. This is all to do with polarized light and how it's seen in the camera. Some quite interesting effects. Polarized light is light that goes in one direction, and a computer screen emits polarized light. Is the light coming out of the computer screen as only going in one direction. So you can use that as one of your tools. So to take this picture, I set the computer screen up with a white background. I put a polarizing filter on my camera because that then sort of seems to change how the camera sees the light going through the glass. The plastic changes the light rays, so that gives all these odd colours. And if there's any sort of flaws in the plastic, it shows up as different colours. And that's something that you don't need. You know, these I have tweaked them in Lightroom to give the colours, but you don't need to do loads of heavy editing again. You know, this can be straight out the camera if you want. But spoons, forks, knives. I think the cheaper the plastic item is, the better, because they have more imperfections in them and they'll show more patterns. So they are all things that you don't need to do lots of editing with. Just your camera, filter, tripod, flash. So this section then, as I said, some using software. I mean, I use Photoshop, but I think most of the packages that you can edit photos in will have layers in. So I think most of you know what a layer is. In Photoshop's basically the process of stacking photos on top of each other. So that you can then, if you think of a book, you've got pages one on top of another. And if you look at the top page, you cannot see the writing through it. But if you made one of the pages transparent, you could then see the writing underneath, and the top writing would interfere with the writing underneath. You know, and that's how the layers in Photoshop work. And you can change the effect between the layers and how they work together. So start off with a simple use of layers. So last year there was a triathlon in the town that started at Bury Sports Centre, swimming, cycling and running. I mean, I stood at the roundabout near the college and the cyclists were trundling past, and must admit, it wasn't very exciting to watch. It wasn't very exciting, the pictures I was getting out. You know, the lady goes past on her bike and round the roundabout. Wow. So I tried to make it a little bit more interesting by adding the three together and getting a sequence. It's never going to be a competition winning picture, but it shows a bit more of what's going on. And that's very simple use of layers, one on top of the other, and just deleting the parts that overlap so that you can see the cyclist going round the corner. Went to the Grand Prix. I was lucky enough to go to that last year. First time I've ever gone. And I thought, I'm not going to compete with John and his pictures because they're fabulous. So, you know, just try. The cars there are so colourful and bright. You know, they're all shone up and glistening. I thought, I'll just make a scene with the cars all lined up. The background is just a pan shot of the track and the barrier and with the stand and the people, and sort of line the cars up one on top of the other. So this is what the layers look like in Photoshop. So you've got background as layer one, and then each of these is a car. This is the layer mask, so I've deleted all the stuff around the car that doesn't want to be shown up to leave the car. So like that, you know, just the white bit shows in each of these layers. to show the car and everything underneath it. So you just have to move the cars around so they're not on top of each other. And this is what they call the blend mode. And this is all kept to normal, but you'll see later on I've used some others. Going downstairs, so everybody has a fascination about stairs and spiral staircases. How to make an interesting shot of stairs is not always very easy. These are the stairs in the Palace House in Newmarket. A museum was well worth a visit if you're got a spare afternoon. It's mainly horses, but there was a photographer. They do have exhibitions of photos there, which is why I went on this particular weekend. And I got this nice staircase, and Joe was walking down it. And as normal, I always take pictures of stairs when we're going down. So I took 3 pictures. And then again, using simple layers, we've combined them together to get the person walking down the stairs, various places. Again, it's very similar to the Formula One cars. You know, I've just deleted out the areas I don't want off 2 of the pictures. So you've kept the stairs from one of the pictures, and then the person shows through. It's quite straightforward use of layers, but it does give sort of an interesting effect. And I've seen other versions of this sort of thing where you've got the people actually moving as a bit of a blur. So if you can get that sort of a blurry person and a stationary person, that can sort of make it a little bit more interesting. And Foxton Locks in the rain. This is wasn't expecting to see this Spitfire fly over, so I just had a 26 to 70 mil lens on. It wasn't good enough to get super duper pictures of Spitfire, but I took lots of pictures as it flew over unexpectedly, and then combined them into this series. So exactly the same technique as the others. And the plane has got white speckles on it, which is the rain. I mean, that absolutely tipped down. We got soaked. All right, so this was when I was on holiday last year, stayed in a log cabin on a farm, and looked at Google Maps, and I was quite excited at the position of it, because it was looking down this valley, which looked quite picturesque, and that was certainly a pleasant scene to look out onto in the evenings. And so I was hoping to get some nice sunsets. We were there the week, and there wasn't one decent sunset. There was just no cloud, and the sun just went down with no effects, or there was too much cloud. This was, I think, about the last evening we were there, and I used the time-lapse facility on the camera. So I think a lot of them, certainly the newer cameras, have it. You can set up in the camera how many pictures you want to take, when you want the picture to start, and how far apart the pictures are. So I set this up to take one picture every minute over an hour, I think it was. And, you know, I got 100 pictures like this, which were pretty rubbish as far as I was concerned. There wasn't the nice sunset I was hoping for. So anyway, using layers on Photoshop again, I combined the pictures. And this time, this has just got two of them in to show this blend mode. I changed that to lighten. So what that does is where you've got, if you think this is a cloudy scene, the clouds are moving across the sky over that hour, change in position, and these light areas will move. And I mean, with these two pictures, you can't see the very much movement, but there'll be a slight movement. And by changing the blend mode to lighten, this light area on the pictures will shine through. The only problem is there was, I don't know, 60 or 70 pictures combined, which just is too many for my camera, for my computer. So I had to do it in batches of 20. And this is the sort of result you end up with. So you can see the movement across the sky of the clouds and the sheep wandering about in the field. And I thought that's a much more interesting effect than just the plain picture of a rather boring sunset. Obviously, I have tweaked the colours as well a bit to perhaps oversaturate it. I like colourful pictures, so I tend to oversaturate probably a bit more than some people would. And this effect can be really good if you've got enough movement in the sky and you take enough pictures. And I mean, this is, say, 60 or 80 pictures, I can't remember, it's quite a lot. And I have seen pictures which just look fantastic with like 400 pictures. And that's just amazing, the effects you can get with the clouds going across the sky. This is a picture, it's been around a long while. I probably did this about 5 years ago. Again, this simple layer and two pictures added together. As my daughter took a picture of her face, then took a picture of her hands, and then blended them together. Obviously, I tweaked the eyes a bit because they're not quite that blue. She has got blue eyes, but not quite that blue. Again, simple use of layers and not a lot else. This one, it's not so easy to spot the use of layers. So reflections from the past. So I used it in a competition quite a few years ago now. It was taken at Anglesey Abbey, the main picture was. But I did use some layers to put these reflections in the lake. Again, very simple use of layers, nothing too complicated. But that just sort of, I've seen odd things on the telly where I can remember one. There's a girl walks past a swimming pool and there's a ball bouncing in the reflection, but the ball is not bouncing where the girl is walking past the swimming pool, and that's quite strange. I think it was a spooky film or something I was watching. That sort of thing gave me the idea for that as something different. The judge didn't twig what it was to start with, and that wasn't until he sort of had a harder look, he spotted the figures because they are a bit subtle. Some of you will remember this from a couple of years ago. A use of a Sunday morning when it's tipping down with rain and you got fed up with doing all the hoovering. Nice picture of a banana. A nice picture of a lime. And a grape. And an apple. And you can put them all together And you can have lunch if you want, but I prefer to add a teapot, especially off the market in Bury. There's a nice stand near the old town hall, sort of where up the top of the market. They sell all sorts of bright pottery. Probably about a £5 for that teapot, not too expensive, but they can all be added together. Again, simple layers, just one on top of the other, and position them in the right place. I did stretch myself to fit the apple in, but that's probably the hardest part. Amazingly, somebody bought one of them at the first Apex exhibition we did. I wonder whether they've still got it on their wall. So, levitation, a workshop we did a couple of years ago. Some of you would have attended it. So again, use of simple layers. That's my back garden where the pond is. There's me having a rest. So I need these two pictures to be combined, you see. And I also took these irises at West Stowe, added them. Slightly more complicated picture than the previous ones because you've got to delete the stool and or cut round me, and sort of ended up with me floating above the lake. Found some butterflies, so not the usual ones we get in our garden, I must admit. The judge didn't like that in one of the competitions. He said I should have been fallen, so I've got to try and sort of put a zoom burst or something in to make it look as though I'm fallen.
And a reflection.
Yeah, well, I've done a slight dark line there. Perhaps that's too subtle. I don't know. That's my first attempt at that sort of thing. That's quite pleased with that. Go on. So, I'm playing around with layers again. This one is at Brandon Country Park, the mausoleum. The trees behind, I took a number of tree pictures, and all I've done is, well, the mortuary's turned into mono, but the trees are, I changed the blending of the different layers, just playing around, and some of them came out colourful. So I just, as you do, play around. That's what I do in the evenings a lot of the time, is just play around with these sort of things. It's a load of rubbish on the telly. So one of those crazy mornings when I couldn't sleep, going back a few years ago, lunar eclipse. Don't get too many of them that are at the right time. So lots of different pictures of the moon as it was going through the eclipse stage. See, I wandered up the field on my estate to take pictures of this, and it was very lonely and dark, but that was quite pleasant. There's nobody around, nice and quiet, watching the moon go down for an hour. I think I'd get a better quality of picture now, as I've learned a bit more about how to take pictures of the moon, because that small size you can't sort of see, they're not that brilliant, but good enough for this. And that's one of my fascinations, as moon and the stars. Just captures the moment. So on something slightly more technical, one of the options in Photoshop, and I guess a lot of the other software packages have them as well, as various filters which do all sorts of effects. Now, there's lots of different things. So I'll start off with twirl, which is one David Richardson found a few years ago. And that's quite a fascinating one. So that's the way you find it. And when you click on the twirl, there are various sort of settings you can play around with. But you can take some straightforward pictures of these tanks. Are actually this was ICI in Stowmarket if you walk along the River Gibbon. PPG is called now. And they are actually that colour, amazingly. I think they have a different chemical in each tank. But if you use the twirl option, it twirls them about. Makes lots of pretty patterns, nice and colourful. Another one's to try these in the light shop down Abbeygate Street. I'm not sure whether they're still hanging up there, but yeah, that's not a very exciting picture. Some strange pictures of glass. But when you play around with the twirl option, it gives quite an interesting effect. And as I said before, I like colourful things, so certainly is that. But the difficulty is sometimes finding a picture you can try these effects out on. It can be a bit of trial and error. Some pictures work better than others. Another effect I do love to play with, I think this is one of my favourite effects, is say the polar coordinates. Again, there's various options inside that option, what you can play around with. Some work better than others. So this is a very straightforward picture that I took on one of our evenings out with a group of us. So yeah, it's a nice picture of Auction Street with a few lights, but you add the polar coordinates filter to it. And if you watch this post and try and imagine in your head that this spins all the way round and ends up over here, you get that.
Oh yeah, very good.
And yeah, that's the difficulty is with these is trying to imagine the pictures that work and those that don't, because this one works quite well. I think that's got a nice effect, but others just don't. So then that's, I mean, that is quite a simple, just plugging the picture in to that filter option and it does the business. Slight variation on this one. And again, this was taken on one of our evenings out, looking down the side of the Debenhams shop across to the Apex building. So I then used horizontal flip, is it? So we get a mirror image. It's just in itself quite an interesting picture. And if you then use the polar coordinates filter on that, you end up with this wacky picture. It's a strange architectural building. Again, I like these sort of wacky pictures. If you remember the Athena pictures from the 80s, don't think you really see them about now. Oh, they used to fascinate me. So that's the nearest I've got to this sort of thing. Similar picture here. I mean, this was taken probably 7 or 8 years ago. I took this picture. Quality's not brilliant. Certainly could be improved on. Again, I flipped it to give you the mirror image, and then I created an apple. That's how the polar coordinates treated that one. Turned it into an apple. And not everybody sees an apple when they're looking at this. But depends on your imagination, I think. So another very useful option in Photoshop, and will be in all other packages as well, is dodging and burning. So in Photoshop, it's find the hand which is a burn. And the way to remember which does what is when you burn something, it goes black. So it's darkening. And the dodge is the opposite, that's lightening. But within the function, you need to pick what you want to darken. So in the burn option, which that's set on at the moment, that's going to darken highlights. But you can darken mid-tones, or you can darken the dark bits. And similar on the burn, the dodge, you can lighten highlights, you can lighten dark bits. It's quite a flexible tool for bringing out. I've found it useful on a few occasions for bringing out detail. And this is the full moon, which some of you would have seen at the beginning of the year. So this was the shot almost straight out of the camera with nothing done to it. An okay picture of the moon, but it can be improved on quite dramatically with the dodge and the burn tool. So you're making the darker areas a bit darker, so you're dodging the darker areas, and sorry, get that right around, burning the dark areas and dodging the light areas, so you're getting a bit more contrast. Just using the contrast option on this will not work because there's not enough of a contrast between the light and the darks. It is the dodge and the burn tool bring out the detail much better. I think Paul has done a bit of a workshop on dodging and burning.
We've covered a bit in critique evenings, that type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a good example of why you use software, because straight out the camera just doesn't give you that detail. So this I don't know whether any of you come across the Josty effect, but that's something that sort of quite fascinated me for a while. And I haven't actually found how to do it easily in Photoshop. I mean, all the stuff I do, I'm not one for spending 2 days working on something. It's one evening, which might be a couple of hours at max, and that's sort of as long as I spend. If I can't do it in that time, then I got bored and fed up. So the Josty effect is basically having a picture inside a picture, and it comes from this cocoa tin, where which the Dutch brought out, say, quite a few years ago, and that tin there has got the same picture of the lady on it, and that's sort of where the name has come from. And so this first picture, my wife and daughter not looking very excited about me taking a picture at one of the houses we visited. And if you watch this part, you'll see the effect coming in. As a picture inside a picture. Just a bit of fun, really. That never-ending mirror effect that you can get. And now this one I think is even better. One of the rooms, I take pictures of the rooms when I'm going around, as most people do, and you think, yeah, that's not a very exciting picture. What can we do with that? And nice picture frame there with some bright flowers, nice and colourful. And you can end up with a never-ending picture of flowers. It's just, that amazes me how these sort of things work. It's, some genius has written a little program to do that. Again, it's finding the pictures that will work on. You know, I've gone through quite a few pictures to find things that.
There's a quick question from CCD saying, how do you do that? This is CCD asking, so there you go, you've baffled him.
Baffled, hooray!
Yeah.
1 house point. Well, it's not in Photoshop, so that's the problem, Chris. And this slide will show you. So it's free software called Photospiralalysis. And you can also make patterns with it. Yeah, so make a note, everyone. That's free. You haven't got to download it. It does take a bit of getting your head around how it works, because you know, you'll spend an evening figuring out how it works, and then you'd be spending another evening trying to find photos that works on. But this is, if you remember this from Chapel Field in Norwich, there's one of the upstairs bits. There's a little, I think it's a coffee place behind here. This is all coloured glass. I like to look at like bright colours again, but wasn't a very exciting picture, so I ran that through there and made some patterns. And this is a screenshot of the website, and these are the options that you go through. So once you've got the website up, you can open your file. This one's set to Thailand. I haven't managed to make the others work very well. You can zoom in and zoom out with this magnification. Spirals, it says there's only 2, and I haven't really worked out how that counts the number of spirals. That's most peculiar, but again, you can play around with all these options to make pictures, and there's hours of fun if you want to spend hours fiddling about. Which, if we're self-isolating, we might have hours of fun to do this sort of thing.
We certainly will.
Yeah. So coming towards the end, this is a couple of little bits that, again, I always take my camera with me whenever I go out, but I also have my phone with me, and I don't use my phone enough. So the difference between time lapse and hyperlapse, I think most people will have heard about time lapse. Hyperlapse is very similar. I mean, I had the time lapse, you can set up the camera and it tends to be in one place and take a number of pictures over a period of time. Hyperlapse, I've got if I go into camera on my Android phone, there's an option there called hyperlapse, and I think it basically takes lots of pictures and puts them together into a little movie. But the main difference between time lapse and hyperlapse that I can work out is, with the hyperlapse, you can move about. So you can be taking this series of pictures while the camera's moving. I was just going to click on to show the difference, if we can get this to go. So this is a time lapse set up, which I set up in the garden. Just had the camera on a tripod, watching the meteors. I was hoping to get some shooting stars, and you'll see there's the odd one flashes by, but that's quite a cloudy night. And so this is about an hour's worth of pictures. There you go. 194 pictures taken a minute apart, so it's a bit more than an hour. And I left the camera out in my garden overnight to take that. I made sure it weren't going to rain beforehand. So that's a time lapse. There's no, apart from the stars going round, there's no movement. The camera stays in the same place. Get out of this. This one is a hyperlapse. Ooh. So that, and taken on the phone, that's a speeded up version. You can set the speed. And the boat goes in, lock gates shut, lock gates open. Got to let the water out. Boat goes out, bridge comes down. That's that Alton Broad, that one. So it's very similar time lapse and hyperlapse. Subtle difference between them. And this one, I thought I'd show this. This is a bit of fun. This is a hyperlapse that my wife took on her Android phone. This shows the amusing side of it. So the last thing I wanted to do is just mention AVs. A number of years ago, we had a competition for AVs, which stands for audio visuals. And they are a mixture of photos and music. And you need a lot of pictures, all of one theme, to make the photo, make it all sort of go together. So you need 60 or 70 photos to make about 3 minutes. So that's when we had the competitions, we never had a massive amount of entries. I think because of the one, you've got to have so many photos that all go together on one theme, and two, the time it takes to put it together. Because you think that takes a long while to mount a picture, well, it takes 10 times longer to make an AV. And so this was one I did, say, for 2012-13. So that was just so put together in Windows Movie Maker on a Windows 7 machine.
Dale, they're asking, was that supposed to be silent?
No, I could hear music on mine.
Ah, right, okay. There was a problem then. We didn't hear any music, but never mind.
Oh right. Oh dear, that's a shame. That's the best bit.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that one.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose that's the only thing that's had sound to it, apart from my voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it then. So that's the end. If anybody's got any questions.
Lovely, thank you very much. If you can you unshare your screen and then make me presenter again, then we'll go see if anyone's got questions and then sort of go from there.
Yeah, I've got to click on somewhere here, haven't I?
Yes, click on the screen icon at the bottom.
Screen icon at the bottom. Then it's up to. I've got lots of people.
That's it. Then you go to people, right click on me and make me presenter.
All right. Oh, you must be up top, right? All right, there you go. Yep, there you go. I should be there.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Excellent. There we are. Right.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Dale. Very good. Keep this for a while. Yes, very good. Right. Any questions before we hand over to Peter for a minute?
Yep.
What can I say? What a captivating evening it's been. And I've personally got to thank Steve and Dale for being the guinea pigs and doing this under such difficult situations. And looking at some of the comments, you guys have done well. I'm proud to be in the same club as you. And I've got a few ideas for the future that have come out of this. So watch this space. Now I'll pass over to Joe, who's going to close the meeting.
Hi everybody.
I was brief.
Pardon? You were brief. All right. Yes, that makes a change, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. You've said exactly what I wanted to say. What a brilliant evening. There's nothing on the telly, and I think this has really captivated all of us. And I've been writing down here all things I want to now try. Twirl and dodge and burn, and this photo, was it spiralysis or whatever it is, and to make patterns. I mean, what brilliant ideas. And there's 34 of us on here tonight. Hopefully another time there'll be more. Not everyone's got all the facilities to do it all the time, but you've just passed our camera evening like it normally would. It's fantastic. So thank you so much, and thanks everyone for sort of tuning in on it, and lots of ideas that people have put down there. So I don't know if you want to look at any of them, Dale, to answer any of them. You have a quick look, Dale, before we go.
I think Paul pointed out the questions as they went through, didn't they?
Oh, okay. As long as you're happy. Yeah.
I was the director.
I've got a question. Go on then, Jen.
No, it's Jackie.
Oh, Jackie, sorry, I thought that sounded like Jen. I wasn't looking.
That's all right. This one's just for Dale. Would you like a cup for your teapot?
Yeah.
I like it.
It's the same storm.
If you need to borrow it for another shot, just let me know.
Yeah.
I think being guinea pigs that you've both done tonight, to sit and do that in front of everyone, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of work setting all that up. So really, really fantastic. You're amazing. You're amazing people in our club. We're very lucky.
Thanks very much, both of you. That's very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah,
Well,
thanks to
thank you
Paul and Peter for setting that up.
Yeah,
Great
definitely.
evening.
Yeah, absolutely. So we look forward to next week when we have
Yeah,
Clash of Furnaces.
I have just to say, I have